Hi guys, welcome back to Iris After Hours. I am here with Mr. Kevin Higgins, and this is a very special podcast because Kevin's the boss over this whole campus where we are currently have our offices and we're shooting this podcast. Yeah. Kevin is the General Director of Frontier Ventures, formerly the US Center for World Missions. Yeah. Kevin is also the President of William Carey International University, and a prior missionary / whatever
human being
from global teams, and you are a missionary as well, obviously a missionary at heart. So we are on really good territory here, common ground. And Kevin, welcome to Iris After Hours.
Thank you. Good to be here, Nathan.
Oh, so good. Thanks for coming.
Thanks.
Kevin, let's just hit the ground running.
Sure.
Oh my gosh, tell us about your journey with, before you even came here to the campus, with global teams. What is global teams? I mean, you just told me your wife is where at the moment?
Yeah, my wife's in Vietnam right now.
Come on.
Yeah. So, well, let me kind of start a little sooner. So, wasn't really raised as a believer.
Oh my gosh.
Met my wife in high school, American high school.
Whereabouts?
Bakersfield, California.
Oh, just north of here.
Yeah, sort of up in there.
Yeah, and, just like about here.
Yeah, it's sort of the country western capital of California. But
it's a real spiritual hub, actually.
Well, there is, yeah. But
there's a lot of churches there in Bakersfield.
But for us, it was
God wasn't on the radar at this time.
Yeah, we met in high school, and I did start. I went to church to meet a girl who already had a boyfriend. Ended up meeting Susan, and we dated in high school. Came to know the Lord together.
How did that happen?
There was a couple at that church that was kind of working with the youth group.
Yep.
And so came to know the Lord. Came into our earliest experiences with the Holy Spirit.
Wow,
things
so
like
you're
that.
First generation Christian.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, my mom was a believer, but we won't get into that whole story. But she had kind of walked away from church for a while and then walked back, but it wasn't taken with me.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so we met when we were 17 and 16, and
oh my gosh,
came to know the Lord together. Then I went away to college. Graduated, got married.
What did you study at college?
English literature.
Oh,
yeah, down in Long Beach, California.
No way.
Yeah.
So what were your major? Shakespeare?
I was really more interested in writing.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was more of a concentration in creative writing. So
wow.
Yeah. So got married.
So hang on, I've got to ask this. Have you got any books?
Well, no, I've written a lot of articles.
Right. Okay. So you do like to write.
Yeah.
So the degree did come in handy?
Yeah, actually it did. Yeah. Sure. So graduated college, got married in 1980. So, we were 2 years old at the time.
That's when I started high school.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, well, probably some of the people listening weren't even born by then.
My wife wasn't born in 1980.
Yeah.
She's born in 81.
Yeah. So, and I started doing youth ministry at a church pretty close to where the center is, up in La Crescenta.
Yes.
Yeah, just up the freeway. And missions wasn't on my mind. It was just, I knew I was called to ministry. Ended up being asked to start a ministry on a local college campus. So,
what did Mum and Dad think of this at the time?
Oh, ministry and stuff, that was fine. Yeah.
They didn't think you were crazy
they
or something?
Susan, and they were fine. So,
okay.
Susan's dad had other questions, but that's different.
Okay. That's another story.
Anyway, first day on the campus, I set up a book table. I've got permission to do that, and I'm trying to reach out to college students. And that first day, all the students who stopped by my table were Muslims from Iran.
Wow.
And I knew by the end of the day, wow, this is something that I really want to know more about. I knew I didn't know what I was doing. And over the course of a year or so, just really getting to know these Muslim students and trying to share and trying to learn. God put a heart for the Muslim world in my my heart, and so I really knew, okay, that's our calling.
What did Susan think of this?
Well, Susan had been discipled in her college days to kind of really understand that there, the missions.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Bring them in,
Thought the phone. That's Jordan. That's my camera guy.
Yeah, well, just bring him in.
I thought he's probably. I want to get in on this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sure he just heard something and said, or God called him to Iran and he heard Iran.
Exactly.
So, anyway, she knew. That missions was a priority, and particularly unreached peoples. We'd heard about that. But she wasn't so sure about the Muslim world. So, and we also knew we needed more training. So I actually ended up, after 2 years of being married and youth ministry, we went to seminary.
Now, were you working at this time, or were you in full-time ministry?
I was in full-time ministry.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh! So
She
you
was
left college
yeah,
into full-time. That's
yeah.
amazing.
And then she was studying to be a nurse. So she graduated, got her first job, kind of nursed me through seminary. And 2 years into seminary, a guy showed up.
So where did you go? Hang on, I got to,
Yeah.
which seminary? How did you choose? Did you pray? How did you?
Yeah, well, so our background denominationally,
Yeah.
which is very different than where we are today, but our background denominationally was in the Episcopal Church or the Anglican Church.
Yes.
But in more of a renewal, evangelical,
Yeah,
and
we
charismatic stream.
We had that in Australia.
Yep.
I don't know if you heard of Jim Glennon.
No.
He wrote the book on. He was an Anglican priest in
Okay.
Australia that wrote a
Right.
book on healing.
Right.
It was when I was really.
So
early.
we were very influenced by that. So I picked a seminary that was really a renewal seminary. It was
Cool.
pretty new.
Whereabouts?
In the Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania area.
So you went way out because
Yeah.
you're a SoCal boy.
Yeah, yeah.
So you left. You flew the coop.
Yeah, and landed there.
How long were you there?
Well, I'll get there. So,
Sorry, I'm jumping the
Yeah,
gun.
no, that's okay. After the first 2 years.
So hang on, where's Pittsburgh?
Yeah,
up here
that's
somewhere?
up in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty cold there right now. So after 2 years of a 3-year program, a guy from Uganda showed up. He was trying to recruit people to come and help them restart a Bible school in Uganda.
Yeah, this was before or after the genocide in Rwanda?
This would have been before that.
Before that, right.
But after Idi Amin. So it was pretty
Oh,
close
yeah.
to Idi Amin's time. So he was asking people to come and help for like for a year or two while they got it restarted. And we thought, well, that's a great chance to kind of test the mission call and not do Muslims, right? So we'll go to Uganda, predominantly Christian country.
Wow.
We'll try the cross-cultural thing, see if that's our call. Then we'll figure out the Muslim thing. That was kind of what we did.
You guys are radical.
Well, no,
so you pulled out of seminary?
Yeah.
Early?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Left seminary.
Did you finish that second year?
Finished the second year.
Yeah.
Ended up in Uganda, and
cool.
literally two weeks or so before we got there, the Bible school closed.
Why?
And just a bunch of issues
In Uganda?
in Uganda. Susan was going to work with a medical doctor who was American guy who had started
perfect for the
primary
mission field.
primary healthcare program.
Yeah.
And so, but when we got there, we found out he was being flown out of the country to the U.S. with hepatitis. So we get to we get in there. I've got no role because the school's closed,
and her doctor's
she's
gone.
put in charge of. She gets put in
Oh my
charge of the
gosh.
whole program. So, but two things happened. One, she became very famous. We were in this village. I don't know. We were kind of just living there, and everybody knew her because she was running this primary healthcare program. Everybody
and
knew
so
her.
many people would come to the clinic, I suppose. And
Well,
get to know
it was
her.
a mobile thing, so they were going out
so
into villages, but everybody knew who she was. Nobody could figure out who I was, so I finally was known
the
as
strange white guy.
Yeah, I was known as Mr. Susan. So that was the, but that was okay. So I started just hanging out in the village, and there were a bunch of shopkeepers in the village who were all from Somalia, and so I've got no role at the Bible school. I've got this heart for Muslims, and a lot of the people in the village are Somali Muslim. So,
Wow.
so over the course of that, we stayed a year, and over the course of the year, God really confirmed the mission call, but he also really, for both of us, confirmed the call to work with Muslims. So didn't see any come to faith at that time, but a lot of the early kind of seeds for trying to use the Quran as a bridge to share the gospel.
There's some really cool teachings on that, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's
I
some
bought
great
my
stuff.
first Quran while I was in Uganda, really started to study it with the idea of how can I build bridges.
That's amazing.
So God was laying some foundations.
Yeah.
And but we came back, finished seminary.
Okay, so back to Pittsburgh?
Back to Pittsburgh, and then thought, okay, so before we just jump to the field, didn't even know where really, let's get a little experience, and so ended up as an assistant pastor there in the Pittsburgh area, but in an old burnout steel town, and so ended up.
That's with the Episcopal.
Yeah, that's right. And so and had our first couple of kids, and I was doing like half half my time really was with the traditional church, and then half my time I was just out on the streets and ended up doing a church plant among quasi-homeless people.
Wow.
And training them to be the leaders of that. So it was really my first church planting experience as well. And so all of this was kind of, I think, God's way of like, well, you're going to go work cross-culturally, you're going to work with Muslims, you're going to need some preparation. So all this was kind of part of that. And then, 2 or 3 years into that, we just started thinking, okay, it's kind of now or never. Like,
yep.
If we don't make this jump,
you felt it was getting close to go time.
We had a house, we had a van, we got 2 kids. It's like
everything's getting a bit too comfortable.
Yeah,
and
like
the suburban lifestyle is like
other churches saying, "Hey, come be our pastor." Other, teach at our seminary, do this, do that. And so we were just really in a season of praying and seeking what the Lord wanted, and just the whole call to Muslims just kept coming back. And so we started looking for organizations and ended up with just because of our background, we ended up with a small one called Episcopal World Mission at that time. And talked to them about our call to Muslims. And my initial experience had been with Iranians, and they're like, well, South Asia, Iran's not South Asia, but South Asia is close. So we have some connections there, et cetera. And turned out they didn't really have connections there, but it got us aimed towards South Asia. Yep. And so stepped out in faith, raised funds, found supporters, raised prayer support, and just really had a word from the Lord that we would be there within a certain month. And oh,
that's great! So you got a prophetic word?
Yeah, and just like
from someone else, or
no, the Lord spoke to me, because a lot of people were really questioning this whole thing. Some of our closest friends were like, "This really, it's not from the Lord. You don't have a visa. You haven't sold your house. You're saying you're going here, but how can you know you're going there if you don't have a visa?" And all this kind of stuff. This is
very typical, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
Chris Valentin has a saying that said, "The dogs of doom always are barking at the gates of destiny."
Yeah,
and this is a common thing, isn't it? That often we're tested.
Yep, and
in the terms of the fear of man,
right,
when to take that first initial step, when it's really something you're really called to do.
And my experience is that the more that comes, the more you're going to need it later.
Wow.
That you're going to need to know that you were called to this and to stick in. So,
because that's the thing that, even in my quiet time this morning, I was just saying to the Lord, I just want to be in your will. I don't care if it's going to be hard or easy, whatever. I just want to know I'm doing what you've called me to do for my destiny in you and what you're calling me to do. Yeah.
So, it was late December, didn't have a visa, hadn't sold our house. It was a really down market for this. Nobody was moving into this community, and people were questioning everything, and I was praying about it.
So you'd bought a house?
Yeah, a couple of years before.
Yeah.
And the Lord just said, "You're going to be there in March." And the circumstances and how that all unfolded were pretty incredible, but I actually want to get to the story that's in the country. So and we arrived March 30th with our 2 kids. Now we've got 3.
Come on.
But landed there in the country that we ended up serving in for most of our time overseas. And,
wow, how many years?
Well, I'm still involved, actually. So we arrived in '91, and I'm still doing things there. So
that's amazing.
28 years now.
That's what's what you call long-term missions right there.
Yeah, and so we didn't live in country the whole time.
No.
But our commitment to that
region
and the movement that started out of that. So we got there, kind of typical first year stuff, trying to learn language and culture, and we had a business visa
so hang on now. Did you get any formal missionary training?
A little bit, and actually our first
through the Episcopalian.
Well, not so much, but our
because Google wasn't around that days. How to be a missionary? Google that.
Yeah. Our first training actually was done by an organization that was based here on the center.
Campus.
Mm-hmm.
No way.
And they did a short thing before we went to Uganda, and then we did a thing with something called missionary internship, which was a training that was being done up in the Michigan area.
Okay.
And that was like language acquisition and culture learning and stuff like that. It's just kind of generic,
practical tools.
Just generic stuff.
Yeah.
And then we went. So so we were doing language learning, culture, trying to figure stuff out, making mistakes, trying to figure out how to raise our kids, all that kind of stuff the first year, and had a business visa with a guy that was going to be buying fish from the country, and I was his representative, but he never
Cool.
bought anything. So eventually the government's just kind of like, no, we're not giving you a new visa. And so lost our visa, had to go back suddenly to the States. By then we know we're pregnant with our third kid.
Is this when you ended up in Montana?
No, now we ended up back in Pittsburgh again.
Okay.
And
back in your old community?
yeah, we're living, all of us, plus, my pregnant wife, living in the living room of friends.
Oh my gosh.
And kind of like what happened, and people go and see you weren't called to do this to begin with, and you've lost your visa, so just it's time to give it up. But I knew about 2 days after we got back that I heard that these guys that I'd heard of before were going to be speaking at the seminary, and they'd been working in Bangladesh. One was Bengali. And so they came and talked about what was going on there, and there had been a movement to Jesus that was, thriving, growing, etc., among Muslims. And but these were Muslims who were not leaving their Muslim community, so they were following Jesus, but they were basically saying that they were doing this as Muslims. They were full or completed Muslims.
Right.
And I thought, wow, this is okay. So, I've kind of thought about this, but I've never seen this. And
because usually it's quite dangerous, that, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, and if this is even 10% true, I got to go see what's happening. So I just went up to them and said, I want to come learn from you guys. And sure enough, over the next couple months, things worked out. We ended up going to that country for we thought it was going to be 3 or 4 months. We were there a little more than a year.
Oh my gosh.
And right after our third kid was born.
So you invented your own mission school.
We kind of did.
Specifically tailored for your calling. That's so cool.
Yeah, so we were working with fish farms and kind of just watching how these guys, the local guys.
Aquaculture, they call it.
Yeah, watching how these local guys were sharing their faith, how they were living in their community, staying in their culture, and following Jesus. So, and of course, when you see something like that happen in one place, you start thinking, well, now we figured it out, right? And so I just figured when we go back to the country where we're working, we'll just start doing that. So after about a year, we go back.
Am I hearing the sound bump somewhere?
Started a fish farm, raised a little bit of money, started a fish farm
so you
in the other country. Yep. Yeah, registered a business.
Because a lot of missions in countries, you need to...
Yeah, you got to do something.
Yeah.
And so we had 2 farms in rural settings with 2 different people groups around them. So villages from 2 different people groups. And started working away back in the country. The way we got into the one, so I was traveling back and forth while we lived in this other country, and I went back to the country where we really wanted to work. Had a friend of mine with me, and I wanted to show him some areas along the coast. So we were praying before we went, and I just felt like the Lord said, open the Bible. So I opened the Bible, got to Mark 10, and it was a story of Jesus telling the disciples, go into this other village, and you're going to find a donkey.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt like the Lord said, I've got a donkey for you. And I'm like, I don't really need a donkey. Thank you. But, in my head, I'm like, what does this mean? So we're driving around and park in this little village to get a cold drink, start talking to the guy at the little cold drink stand. It's right on the coast. Turns out it's a fishing village. The guy finds out we're doing a fish farm in this other country, that I'm thinking of doing a fish farm in this country. And he's like, well, this is a fishing village. Do you want to have a tour? And I'm like, sure. So we're walking around. He wakes up this guy who turns out he's the brother of the head of the village. So he wakes this guy up, and the guy starts walking us around. And I come around the corner, and I see in the center of the village, right by the coast, I see these cement tanks dug down into the ground and an old rusted water pump. And I'm like, somebody's been doing fish farming here. And it turns out I was the head of the village. He had tried to do fish farming in his own village, and he never succeeded.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so the brother, who's the brother of the head of the village, just says, "But you guys are fish farmers. Why don't you do that?" So God gave us this entry into the center of this Muslim village.
Oh my gosh!
With
how
the
crazy.
protection of the head of the village and
this
all
was
that
the
kind of
donkey.
stuff. This was the donkey. So started working there once we got back, and but also a bigger farm out in another area, the other side of the city we were living in. And so just, started plugging away and building relationships, learning another language, and
A local dialect.
Yeah. So a whole other people group.
Yep.
And and came across this guy.
That's busy. That's a busy life right there.
So
and where were your kids at this stage? Just
they were in
with you?
school. They were in school.
They put with you on the mission
Yeah,
field?
yeah, oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
So
I mean, we were living
homeschool?
there. So no, they were in school. They were
Okay.
in a local school,
Cool.
and then and I was doing the farm. They came out to the farm pretty often. But anyway, I ended up meeting this one family, and their oldest son had actually become a believer. And this was in a people group that there were no believers except this guy. I mean, he was the only one. And it wasn't the same group that our farm was in, but he spoke that language, and that's how I had met him. And he was helping me with my language learning. And so I didn't know he was from this other people group when I first met him. So he invited me up to meet his family. It was about a 10-hour drive out into the boonies.
The bush.
Yeah. And so went up there thinking, okay, I'm going to be practicing language and all this kind of stuff. Turns out they're this whole other people group. And he's the first believer. And he's like, we start talking. We got to know each other over the next few months. And, basically I started sharing with him what I had seen going on in this other country where people had come to Jesus but were following within their culture. And he was like, if we do this the traditional way here, like, he's like, I became a believer. I get it. But nobody in my village is going to follow in a traditional sort of Christian way. There's got to be another way to follow Jesus. And so I had shared with him about what was going on in this other country. And he's like, is that even possible? And I'm like, well, I've seen it. And he's like, sticks out his hand and is like, can we agree to do this with my people? And I'm like, okay. So we kind of made this pact.
Oh my gosh, how crazy.
And then his brother, so, it's a big family. His brother was kind of the one, younger brother was sort of the one set aside by the family to be the, it's like some Catholic families will set aside one to be the priest, right?
Yeah.
So this was going to be the religious guy, right? He was going to be the imam. And so I started just spending time with this guy because he had memorized the Quran and he was very serious about his life and his faith. And I just started sharing with him. I'd sit with him in the mosque sometimes. We'd talk about the Quran. I'd point to the Bible. We did a lot of stuff. And so for 5 years I did that.
Oh my
with this family.
Gosh, Kevin, that's
and
amazing.
In two other people groups, we were seeing some fruit, like some discovery Bible studies had started and some other stuff. People were coming to the Lord. But in this particular family, like, it was still just the older brother and nobody else. And but about 5 years in, I was so effective sharing that this guy went off and joined a sort of radical jihadi group. So, and we just marshaled prayer and all this kind of stuff. And we got to pray this guy back because, it's just, and so he came back to his own country after about 8 or 9 months in a training camp. And he'd gotten really disillusioned. We didn't know that at the time, but he just saw this violence and anger, and he just like,
wow, so the Lord was working on his heart.
Yeah, he's like, this is not what I want to do. So he came back and he wrote a letter basically saying, I have a lot of questions. He started reading, we had done a harmony of the 4 Gospels.
Oh, okay.
In a very, in local language and in a very kind of, a way that would be really easy for Muslims to understand.
So putting it into one book? Is that what you mean, a harmony?
All 4 Gospels as one story.
Yeah.
Because Muslims get kind of hung up on, wait, there's supposed to be 1 Gospel, but there's 4, and then, all that. So all right, here's the story.
Yeah.
But in a way that's really easy for Muslims to understand. Removed a bunch of stuff that was hard for them to get first, because we just wanted an entry tool, right?
Is that still available?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's it called? Have you published it?
Yeah, we have. Yeah.
How does someone get hold of it?
I can give you a copy.
I want one. Yes,
yeah,
I definitely want.
I've got
what
some
about
in
our
my
viewers?
office. Is
it on Amazon?
No, it's not on Amazon. We actually have only sold it through Islamic bookstores.
Right.
So
cool.
Yeah. So we don't really want to put it sort of out there like that.
No,
but I'll give you a copy.
That would be lovely.
Anyway, so he started reading that when he came back from this training camp, and God just started working on his heart. So, for example, one day he goes to the mosque and he's watching all these people pray, and the verse about when you're at worship and you realize that something you have something against your brother, or they against you, go make it right, otherwise your worship is
Yes.
vain, right? So he remembers that verse, and he's looking around, and it's a village mosque, and he's like, this guy hates that guy, this guy hates that guy, this uncle won't talk to that nephew. He's like, man, our worship is just, what are we doing? And so he had all these questions, and he wrote a letter and just said, hey, can you come talk to me? So we get this letter, me and the older brother and a guy from another organization who we had been working with. He's actually gone to be with the Lord now, but he was very much
And
part
so
of
this is still in that village. It's 10 hours drive from where you...
Well, that's where this guy was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where he's going. So I'm back in a big city. I get this letter, and we read it, and we're like, we got to go see him.
Yeah.
He's got questions. So this was before... this was like 1998. So there, we weren't using cell phones. There was no email. There was, we were just like, there was email starting, but with these guys, they didn't even have electricity in their house, right? So no phone. So we're just like, we just got to go. So we decided that we were going to borrow a guy's car and drive all night, spend the next day, and just kind of see what happened, right? And so we're waiting for the car to come, me and the brother who's a believer.
Yeah.
And this guy doesn't know we're coming. But we're waiting and for the car to show up that we're borrowing. And I'm sitting around. We've been working at the fish farm all day, and I'm just like, I don't know what word you use in Australia, but I'm just knackered.
Yeah, knackered. That's
right?
it.
Yeah.
Plum tuck it out.
I'm just worn out. Like this. And then I'm thinking, there's people who support us and pray for us, and they think I'm a spiritual guy. I should do something spiritual. We're going to go talk to this guy who's written a letter. For all I know, this is, the Lord drawing him. We should pray. So I'm like, to my friend, I'm like, we should pray before we go on this trip. He's like, okay. He's tired too. We're like, okay, let's pray. So we start praying very American, just kind of, dear Lord, and for me, it's just like, I'm supposed to do it, so I'll pray.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling anything. But the Spirit of God showed up, and we ended up on our faces on the floor and just really just sensing God, just begging God to do something in this whole country, and just feeling the presence of God.
The spirit of intercession came on you.
And then the Lord spoke to me in the middle of it. He said, ask me for a miracle that'll bring this family to me tonight. And I don't know what your conversations are like, but what I was saying to the Lord was like, okay, that's really specific.
Yeah.
Like this family tonight. And so I'm like, okay,
what
Lord,
a question for the Lord to ask you. That's so
then
cool.
I'm like, so just in my heart, I'm like, okay, Lord, do that. That'd be awesome. And he's like, pray that out loud so that this guy hears it, right? And I'm like, but he's going to be so disappointed when nothing happens. That's what I said to the Lord. He's going to be so disappointed when nothing happens. The Lord's, exactly. He's like, say it.
Lovingly.
So, yeah.
Boy,
because I'm such a spiritual giant, what I said to him was, this is what I think the Lord's telling me. I think we're supposed to pray for a miracle that will bring your family to him tonight. He's like, do it. So we prayed. Car shows up. We start driving. Drive all night. We get there around 6 a.m, something like that.
Oh, my gosh.
And the guy that we're hoping to see opens the gate. We're like banging on the gate. Opens it up. He's like, wow, what are you guys doing here? And welcomes us in. We drink tea, greet the family, have breakfast, all this kind of stuff. Finally, all the ceremonials are over, and it's just him and us, and we're sitting there. And he's like, so did you get my letter? And we're like, yeah, that's why we came. He's like, well, I do want to talk to you about the questions, but I need to tell you about something. We're like, okay. He's like, last night I had a dream. And in my dream, there was this guy in bright, shining clothes. And he said, I have a wonderful gift for you and your family. People are coming to explain it to you. When they get there, listen to them. And when I woke up, you guys were knocking at the gate. And he turns to me and he's like, Brother Kevin, I know what you're going to say. Because I've been sharing with him for 5 years, right? I know what you're going to say, so what do I do?
Oh, my gosh.
And I said, so now I'm drawing on all my seminary experience, all my life as a disciple maker. And I said to him, what do you think you should do? That was my big moment of wisdom. And so he said, I need to go tell my family about the dream. And I'm like, okay. So he goes, he gets mom and dad, brothers, sisters, people who've married into the family. There's about 20 of them, right? And they're gone for like 45 minutes. I'm not part of that meeting. And the whole family comes in after about 45 minutes or an hour. And they're like, what do we do? Because they'd all heard. I mean, we'd shared. They'd seen miracles.
So how many years had you been in this country?
This would have been year 6, no, 7.
Oh my
Seven
gosh.
of
God's
working,
number.
doing this.
And then what
that's
happened?
true.
And then they said, what do we do? And
Yeah,
they
they're like,
all
okay,
came to the
what do we-
Lord?
Yeah. So, well, we'll get there. Hang in there.
Oh my gosh. I know,
So
I'm jumping ahead.
yeah.
I love
I
this
mean,
story.
obviously that's where it's going. So they're like, what do we do? And I'm like, well, there's really 2 initial commandments. That's to believe and then be washed. We don't use the word baptized because it's got all kinds of connotations.
Right.
So and be washed in His name, and then and give yourself to Him. They're like, how do we do that? So we spent the next hour or so trying to, because the guy from the other organization that was there with me, we were very aware, whatever we do, I mean, this is the first family in this whole people group, whatever we do is going to set a precedent. This is what they're going to do. So we want to really do this. We want to do this in a way that really can flow in the culture, right? And not be like something that, some ceremony that doesn't fit and all that. So we figured it all out, and they wanted to do a big picnic and rent trucks and have a bunch of people and all this kind of stuff. And we're like, that'd be really exciting and fun, and I would love to do that. But so let's imagine 3 months from now, another family has come to faith. What if, can they do that? And, well, they might not have the money for that. Okay, so is this something we want to do always, everywhere? Well, no, that wouldn't be a good idea. So we ended up
because you're really creating a culture, aren't you?
Yeah. So we really just did this in their family compound with everybody. But yeah, everybody. So the next day, everybody was washed, and we started by washing the father, and then he participated in washing the family. But before this happened, the day before, when we were talking about all this with the family, one of the brothers was missing. He was at work. So we're thinking, so how do we go tell him? Because tomorrow everybody's getting washed. How do we go tell him? And they're like, so they assigned me and one of the other brothers to go tell him. So we go find him in his tailor shop, and I'm figuring we're going to go in, we're going to kind of pull him out, talk privately, because this is a place you walk around, this guy's got guns, there's so I'm thinking we're going to be real quiet about this, real discreet, and this brother just starts the conversation right there at the tailor shop. He's on his machine, and he's just, we're going to get washed, and blah 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 blah, and brother had a dream, and blah 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 blah, and the guy at the tailor thing said, okay, well, I just have one question, I'll ask you when I get home. So we're waiting for him. I'm figuring it's some big theological question, right? So, but it actually is a very profound question. So when he got home, he's like, okay, here's my question. If we get washed, are we becoming Christians?
Whoa.
And so before I could answer, the oldest brother, had been a believer for quite a while. He'd been in the Lord a while. He said, well, if you think we're going to eat pork, watch dirty movies, and get drunk, no. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. So
that was the
this
connotation
concept,
of Christians.
yeah, exactly. So
wow.
The reason I wanted to share that, and why I think it's a profound question, is it kind of unlocks how things are perceived. And the terminology we're comfortable using, the style of prayer we're comfortable using, the forms we're comfortable using for church stuff, even the word church, all that can be unnecessary barriers to people actually coming to the real thing.
Yeah.
And so we just really had to kind of unlearn all the vocabulary and all the traditional stuff and just find ways to communicate that help the gospel be yeast in the dough.
Yeah.
Help it stay in. And so that was really, really, that was an amazing question from this guy. And, just illiterate, normal guy, tailor, and like, but what was awesome, he had no objection coming to Jesus. Wow. His objection was he didn't want to be a Christian. Right? And so, anyway, so that started. So when they were all washed, they promised that they would follow the Lord and continue to grow in Him, and that they would tell other people. And so, I've heard people make those commitments in the West, I'm sure you have. When you disciple people, people make those commitments. But how often do we actually see people go do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Especially in normal churches.
Yeah.
They went and did it. And so that was 1998, and we discovered by the year 2000 that there were disciples in 3 different language groups, kind of spread all out over the southern part of the country, and we thought, we got to start doing leadership training. These guys are getting all worn out, traveling around doing things. So we called our first leadership training in the year 2000, and pulled people together, decided we're going to spend a week studying the Gospel of Luke, nothing but Luke. We're just going to go through Luke. What's it say? What's it mean? What do you do? That was it. That was our leadership training.
I like it.
And we basically...
What does it say? What does it mean? What do you do?
What do you do?
I like that.
And so then...
It's a t-shirt.
That's a good t-shirt. That's right. So we got about 11 people together. Our criteria was believer, washed, led somebody to faith. So that was what we were looking for. But one guy got in who didn't meet the criteria. So second day of our study of Luke, this guy raises his hand and he's like, what are we doing? He's very polite day one. Didn't say anything, but very polite. And we're like, what do you mean? He goes, well, we're Muslims. I mean, why are we studying this book? Why aren't we studying the Quran? You know, if we're going to study a book, let's study that. So we show him from Quran why we're studying this book, and he's like, okay. By the end of the week, the friends who brought him are like, well, you know, do you want to be like us? And he's like, no, I'm a Muslim. You know, and how he got there was he saw his 2 friends who were believers standing at the edge of the road in his village waiting for a bus. And he's like, where are you going? We're going to the city. Oh, what are you going to do? We're going to meet with friends. Can I go? Yeah. And they don't explain to him the whole trip in. They've got an hour on the bus. They never say a word why they're going, what they're going to do. We're going to do Bible study. Nothing. They don't explain anything to the guy. He just shows up thinking, I'm going to hang with friends, and finds out it's this, right?
Oh my gosh.
So he goes back to his village. You know, we're like, okay, well, now he knows everything. Like, he knows everybody involved. He knows, in those days, the movement was still pretty small. He knows where people live. He knows what we do, etc. So, but we decide, okay, well, God, we trust you. So I think 30 or 40 days later, we had the second leadership training and invite all the same guys back. And he shows up. And he's got like 20 guys with him. And we're like, what's this? And he's like, well, yeah, I went back to my village and, you know, I didn't think about anything. About 2 weeks later, I had a dream. And I saw this man, and he said, follow me.
Oh, my God.
And
what could have been a disaster.
Yeah. So he starts thinking, you know, follow me. And he knows it's Jesus in his dream. He knows he knows it's Jesus in the dream. And then, but he starts thinking, follow me, follow me, follow me. What is that? How do I follow you? And all he can think of is in Luke 4, I mean, he didn't know it was chapter 4, but he remembered going through Luke, right? Before he's even a believer.
In the first leadership training.
Before he's a believer, he's learning the Bible.
Oh my gosh.
He's already becoming a disciple before he's a believer, and he starts thinking, follow me, I will make you fishers of men. Wow. And he starts thinking, what does that mean? And then he had listened to these guys talk about how they're sharing. And he thought, I guess that's what you do. I mean, it just was like, that's what it means. So these are my guys. And this is who he
20 guys.
With. Yeah. It helped that his dad was the head of the village. You know, he had a little influence. But
oh my gosh.
So anyway, it's stories like that really, you know, I could keep going and going and going. Over the years, the movement has grown. Other people groups, Bible translation, leadership training, all that kind of stuff.
And you're still involved in it. It's still happening.
So now I'm kind of at a level where the movement leaders in different countries, where I'm kind of the bridge that's helping them connect, encourage each other, etc. So that it's not me kind of being the guy with them. So we've been able to make that transition as these guys have matured and grown. So it's been really encouraging and exciting. And that's what I was doing. Well, I'm still doing that, but I mean that it was out of that the whole shift of the organization we'd gone with, which remember was called Episcopal World Mission eventually.
Yes.
Originally. So in the year 2000, I became director of that organization, and we changed the name to Global Teams because we were already not just Episcopalian. We already had people from other countries, and so we called it Global Teams.
Oh my gosh! So wow! So, what a story!
Yeah. So I've been directing that for the last well, since 2000.
Yep.
And then in 2016, Susan and I were starting to think that there might be something different than being director of global teams, and that maybe God was moving us to something else. We thought He was going to put us back in Asia, close to Muslims again.
Yep.
And I mean, I was still involved, but like living in it. And so we were starting to look at a place to land and live and be there 3 months and back here 3 months and there 3 months, like that. And we actually did our first sort of stint of that in Malaysia. And so we were starting to shift half and half. And didn't have a house. We were living with friends in Malaysia, living with friends in California, and just kind of itinerant, right? And so kids were growing up by then. In 2016, I saw this email basically saying that WCIU, William Carey, was looking for a new president. And the Lord told me you should look into that. But I wasn't interested. I had no interest in being the president of a university or anything like that. So I just said, Lord, if you want me to look into it, have them come to me. And I deleted. That's how obedient I was. Because I just felt this thing, and I just let it go. And then about a year later, January 2017, the Lord told Susan and I, this is the year to let go. This is the year of the change. So GT's got to pick a new leader, and you've got to step out. And I'm like, to do what?
How did He tell you that?
Just told us. I mean,
just an audible voice, or just
no, in our hearts.
Yeah,
and feel the peace, kind of confirming it and that kind of stuff. So, but it was that year, and so I was telling my board about it and my leadership team and all this kind of stuff. And in the middle of that, I get a phone call from one of the board members at the university saying, hey, I want to talk to you about something. And he asked me if I was interested in this other role. And I said, no, not really. He said, man, I'm glad to hear you say that. Because what I really want to talk to you about is whether you'd be interested in being president at WCIU. And I said, man, all I can tell you is a year ago, the Lord told me to look into it. And I said, I'll look into it if they come to me. And here you are. So we need to look into it. And so that started the process that led us over about 6 months of just kind of praying, asking a lot of questions, getting a sense of some of the challenges that are here, as well as I think some of the things the Lord still wanted to do. And we said yes and moved down here to Pasadena in August of 2017 to be the president of the university and on the leadership team of Frontier Ventures.
Yeah.
And then this last January 2019, I became the general director of Frontier Ventures. Right. So now I lead that lead team, and I'm leading the university. So that gets me up to here and how we met.
So what's more exciting, the William Carey thing or the Frontier Ventures?
Yes.
Because as a missionary in your heart for the gospel, which it's really in both of those things, isn't it?
It really is.
What's the difference?
Yeah. Well, they were always meant to be joined at the hip.
Yeah.
And I think we've had some challenges in the last years that have kind of made them sisters that didn't talk to each other as much.
Yeah.
Like in families it happens.
And William Carey used to occupy the campus, didn't
right,
he?
That's
until
right.
It went to more of an online school, is it?
Well, actually, it's always been an online distance education, and we still do that. Our master's degree is in international development. It's completely done distance.
How do people apply? Just
go
online?
www.wciu.edu.
There you go.
And it says apply all over the website. You can't escape.
Your international development degree awaits you guys.
And it's really an awesome degree because it's and I'm not just saying this because I'm the president, but it is an awesome degree because it's a degree in international development. But the core philosophy of international development we bring is a missiological foundation. So you're getting a whole perspective on international development that has to do with all of God's purposes for all the nations.
Yeah.
And really grounded in that. So a really strong biblical foundation, a really strong missiological foundation, and then courses in international development. And then a lot of independent study where you can tailor things to your own context and your own need, and do a project that results in what we call a capstone project, which is like designing something you want to do in a people group. So it actually really is an awesome degree, and we're hoping in the future to add things like a MBA in development. Related things and
so
things
that's
like that.
But really the practical training for business, like what you did.
That would be
business in whatever country you're called to.
Yeah, that's right. And other things that we're adding. So we've got areas of focus within our MA that one of the ones we hope to launch is something called Global Women's Empowerment. And so really helping women understand kind of the fullness of their freedom in Christ and that sort of thing. which, in a lot of unreached people groups is a huge, huge thing.
Because women tend to be I'm not still a minority group.
Yeah.
In a lot of cultures.
So I'm really excited about what William Carey's doing. I'm really excited about the opportunities for Frontier Ventures.
So tell us about Frontier Ventures.
Yeah.
What animal is Frontier Ventures?
Well, it's sort of what animal is it? I wish I had a really great answer right off the top of my head. I'll think about animals, okay? But so historically, 40 years ago, Frontier Ventures was started not to be a sending agency. It was started by Dr. Winter.
Yeah, Ralph Winter. He's the one that helped acquire the campus after the Nazarenes moved off of the campus.
That's right. He led that charge, and along with others. And
because they moved to San Diego. You pass their campus as you're going down to San Diego. It's on the side of the 5.
Right.
Yeah. Then you
so he his whole thing was he had identified he was the first one to kind of identify what we now call unreached people groups.
Yes.
Others later came up with the 1040 window thing, which is what I think you were going to say. But yeah, he first started articulating the concept of unreached peoples, that there's language and culture groups that might be in a country where there's a lot of Christians, but there's been no work to try to reach this particular language and culture group. Yep. And until somebody crosses that barrier, it's not going to happen.
They're still technically an unreached people
exactly.
group. Yeah.
So unreached, not just like unevangelized or not believer, or in a neighborhood with no believers, but unreached as in this language and culture group, there's fewer than 2% believer of any type. Right. And so he really, and so he really saw the center here as a place to bring organizations together, to collaborate, to focus on that frontier, unreached people groups. And so not just mission generally, but that frontier. Yeah. And so, it was 40 years ago. So the paradigm was, here's this central place. We're going to get organizations, mostly Western, all Western actually, to come here. They're going to put staff here, and we're going to collaborate, and we're going to be a think tank, and we're going to come up with solutions that will overcome the barriers that are keeping these people from faith in Christ. And so brilliant, innovative, but, over 40 years, things have changed.
Yeah.
And now, the rise of the whole global mission sending movement, Latin Americans and Koreans and, et cetera. And that's a lot of what Global Teams was about. We grew from 11 to 600 cross-cultural workers in Global Teams. 40 of those are from the West.
Oh my gosh.
The rest are African, Asian, and Latin American, working among unreached people. So, how do you catch that wave? You're not going to do it just in Pasadena. So beginning to revision not a center, but centers, hubs where collaboration and innovation and mobilization and training can happen much closer to the field, much closer to where unreached people groups are and where people are actually working with them, and you're actually solving barriers that are in this people group, not just in people groups generally, that kind of stuff. So that's really where we're headed in Frontier Ventures. I'm really excited about that. It builds on our heritage. It's part of our DNA. But now it's like multiplying that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's super exciting.
Yeah, I think so.
Come on.
Yeah.
So now that's going to be your visioning and helping that happen.
Yeah.
William Carey's still going to be going on.
Yep.
And still doing the degrees.
Yep.
Where you've taken over the helm.
Yeah.
Now the campus.
Yep.
Is been sold.
Right. So the campus is under a contract. It hasn't been finalized. We haven't reached escrow. I mean, we're in escrow. We haven't reached
finalization
of the here's all the money, et cetera. So, but yeah, the boards, and this was a conversation going on before I ever got here.
Yes.
And I didn't know all the ins and outs of all this stuff.
Yes.
But when I got here, the university board in particular was fairly far down the road of coming to terms with what's our best stewardship.
Yeah. Now, just to come back, so this was the Nazarenes campus. They built this, didn't they?
Right. Yeah.
So none of these buildings were built by Ralph Winter or Frontiers. No. This was inherited when the Nazarenes realized. Yeah. But there was a move of God here with the Nazarenes. That's why the Mott Auditorium, which is this massive building.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it was built to house. They were having open-air revival meetings, and the Pasadena city said, you can't do this outdoors. You need to build it. So they built the biggest, cheapest building they could build to house a revival in the 40s, 50s?
Probably.
Something like that?
Yeah.
And they were training people here and everything, but then it just got too small for them, and that's why they... at
I
some
think that was
stage in
some
the
of it.
70s
Yeah,
they moved to.
It was late 70s
Yeah.
when Dr. Winter raised the funds to purchase it. And, so there's still, I think there's still a lot of people who are hoping and praying that the purposes for Mott Auditorium and the campus can be fulfilled in a new way. And a lot of people are praying on that. The board here decided that to sell because of a lot of, kind of a whole history of years and years and years where it was difficult to have the funds to do the maintenance that was necessary and all that kind of stuff. And I think finally just realized, we're having board meetings where we're talking about property and not purpose. And so, so they really wrestled through. It was a hard decision for them, and they, godly people, and they really wrestled through, and that was the decision that they came to. So, so we're in the midst of that process. We'll see what God does.
Come on, we're all waiting with bated breath to see
That's right.
if this
see what
deal goes through or not. In the end.
Yeah. So,
and how's that been? Has it been tough?
Yeah, because I'm trying to, our own people in our own community are struggling on both sides of this. There's someone who feels like this is the best decision ever because it's going to free us from this and free us for this, and others who are feeling like, no, this is like, there's a
part of a
promise of God here and part of the heritage, and we should hang on to it. And so, how do you navigate that together?
Yeah.
Plus other collaborating organizations. How do we hold these relationships together and seek to walk in unity with each other even when we disagree? And I think that's a really profound challenge for us as believers sometimes. But I was really struck. One of the things I'm walking our community through right now is Romans 12 through 15. And in 14 and 15, Paul's dealing with the divided Roman church, and they're divided over issues of food and ceremonies, right?
Right.
And those aren't just culture issues in that context. These are religious issues. This is issues of Jewish law.
Right.
This is in the Bible, right? That you don't eat this and you keep these ceremonies. But the believers are like, some in Christ are going, but we don't have to do that as we follow Christ. And the ones from Jewish backgrounds are, we are. It's in the Bible. We got to do this, right? So they're divided.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting as Paul deals with this. And these are issues of deep conviction for these people. Theological, biblical convictions, spiritual convictions, right? As believers.
Yeah.
What's really interesting when he gets to chapter 14 and 15, where he's dealing with this, is he doesn't try to get them to agree. He basically says, you need to honor each other's consciences. And this is Kevin's version. We're big enough in Christ that we can move forward even with our divisions.
Come on, that's such a good word.
We're united in him. We are big enough.
That's a t-shirt right there.
That's a t-shirt.
We're big enough in Christ that we can move forward even with our divisions. Yeah. Come on. Someone put that on a t-shirt and send it to me.
Yeah. So I think that's a really profound word for the body of Christ.
It is,
because there's so much that divides us. And some
and
of
we
it,
don't all
some
have
of
to
it's
think the
stupid
same.
stuff.
And we have different. And in this political climate, how good is that for this political climate?
Amen.
Whether you're red or blue or Democratic or Republican, that.
Yeah, because sometimes we get divided over stupid stuff, right?
Exactly.
But sometimes it's really deep conviction.
Yeah.
A theological issue or a church form issue or a contextualization issue. How far can you go or not go? These are, how to pray. The whole division between, baptism. Is the Holy Spirit still working in the same way now as not? And believers who don't agree with that, right?
Yep.
I mean, believers who would hear my story today and go, God doesn't do that anymore.
Yeah, God doesn't talk to you. Yeah.
Right. So some of these are deeply held things. And yet I think the challenge in Romans is how do you move forward even while you have that? And it all goes back to Romans 12, which is you present your bodies as a living sacrifice.
Come on.
And Lord, I'm not mine. I'm yours. And I give
in
myself
in a
to
way
you.
hands off.
Transform
your
my
own
mind.
life. Yeah.
Transform my mind. Help me to know your will. And then the whole rest of Romans is unpacking what the transformed mind is like.
Yeah.
It's a life that loves, that uses its gifts to serve other people, that forgives its enemies, that submits to authority even if it's wrong, that love is the core ethic, and then can say, all right, you're eating that stuff. It grosses me out, and I think you're wrong. It's in the Bible. You shouldn't eat that. I'm not going to eat it, but you know what? We're brothers.
Come on.
And so we're going to do this.
Wow.
And that's where
That's super powerful.
Yeah, and so that's what we're trying to walk through here.
Bit like marriage.
And, yeah, it's a bit like marriage. Well, maybe yours. I don't know. We don't have any disagreements. That's why my wife's in Vietnam right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Anyway,
funny. That's so funny.
Yeah, so that's the story.
That's so good, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, Kevin, I've got one more. Well, I've got a few more questions, but one thing I would love you to share on is, because a lot of our people have mission on their hearts.
Sure.
What's your advice? You've obviously stayed the course.
Yeah.
And in your heart right from the beginning.
Yeah.
What's some advice you can give to our young people that are listening now that have a heart for missions and feel called? What advice can you give them to stay the path? Because here you are, years down the
really
28
old.
Years.
Here I am, really old.
Not old.
Yeah.
You're
well,
young.
I mean, my first. So when I knew I was called to work with Muslims, I was 22 years old.
Wow.
And I'm 60 now.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow. So
38 years,
38
knowing you're
years.
called to do something, stay in the course, having some detours, like go off to seminary. How's that reaching Muslims? Being an associate pastor, how's that reaching Muslims? But overall.
But that
kinda
all
stay
added
in
to
that
your
course.
journey. They
That's
gave
right.
you skills and tools and.
So I think it's it kind of, and everybody's unique. You know this.
Exactly.
God works in
And that's how
everybody's.
God's made us.
Yeah, and so I would say somehow this journey, every journey, is somehow a blend of the next step and the long term.
Wow.
Right. So you can't take your step is never the full step.
No.
You don't jump from Kevin at 22 to Kevin at 60. I mean, it feels like it when you're 60.
Yeah.
It feels
was
like
just
you took one
yesterday.
step.
Yeah.
But that's actually not how obedience really works. So you set your target on the thing you think God has put in your heart, and then you follow the next step.
Yeah.
And I think very rarely does he give you much more detail than the next step. He may give you the big picture, like Kevin, Muslims, right? But I didn't know the country. I didn't know the people group. I didn't know when. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know what it was going to look like. But I took the next step, and I just kept taking the next step. And sometimes I took the next wrong step.
Yeah.
And then maybe you take two wrong steps. And then you kind of come back and go, okay, Lord, recalibrate me. I'm yours, And so I think that's what it is. It's, there's that phrase, the Eugene Peterson book, long obedience in the same direction. But that's a long obedience in the same direction is a whole series of very short one-day obediences.
Yeah, and those steps, and it's the faithfulness in that step that's in front of you.
That step,
because that's almost
even if it doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah,
or you don't know how that connects to the other thing God told you.
But if you don't take that step, you're going to miss the connection to the next one, to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I think that's probably what I would say is,
and that's your faith too. I mean, I'm sure you are exercising your faith that I'm going to do this in faith, that it's leading this way.
Right.
I'm following God. So you did it by faith.
Yeah.
You went to university. You went to seminary by faith.
You
became the associate pastor by faith.
Right. This is what God wants.
I believe this is what God's calling me to do now, and I know it's still this is what I feel called to do to the Muslim world. And then that was the right step.
Yeah.
And then it led to this, and it led to that.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I think the other piece of that, which I just thought of as you were sharing that, because I'm thinking back on my experience. So when I was in those 4 years, for example, an associate pastor doing the street ministry, church planting, I still had the Muslim world in my head, but it wasn't like an everyday thing.
Yeah.
Because you got to be faithful in the thing God put in front of you.
Yeah, and you can't be split.
Constantly like
wow.
Here's these people on the street. God called me to minister to them right now. I have no idea how that connects me to the Muslim world, but this is what's in front of me. So I've got to stay faithful right here.
Oh, that's such a good word.
Yeah. So
as a T-shirt,
I've
got to be faithful right here.
Yeah.
And right now.
You got a lot of shirts. I don't see any around here. But
I know. They're in the cloud.
They must
They're in
not
the cloud.
be sending you shirts when you tell them.
I'm waiting for my first shirt.
Okay.
I'm going to wear it. If you send me the shirt, I'm going to wear it.
I'll give you a sweater.
No, it needs it on there. It needs something on there.
Yeah.
But Kevin, it's really good advice. It's so liberating in a way to really let people be free to do what they got their vision, they got the goals, but to be faithful and do it, and then really embrace that step. even if it doesn't look like it's got anything to do with the next step.
Yeah. Do you find sometimes in your work that I mean, I've got, I mean, my daughters who are, obviously a younger generation than me. I know they've occasionally, and some of their friends occasionally get hung up with like a fear of making a mistake, and also some FOMO, fear of missing out.
Oh, yes.
Like if I do this, I'll miss that
when I was younger.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so sometimes I think people struggle with that. So one of the things I want to say is that you actually, this fear of making mistakes, I think we get really hung up sometimes on like God has one path, and if I miss that, I'm sunk, I'm toast, right? And so I think a couple things is, one, you can't actually out mistake God.
Come on.
He is so much bigger, and he's woven every one of my mistakes
I know.
into something.
He's a master
that's
at working with mistakes.
Yeah, that's right.
Like he's got his degrees upon degrees.
Yeah, that's right.
Master's, doctorate.
Yeah.
Like what's above doctorate? God's got that on working with mistakes.
And obviously a key to that for us to taste the blessing of him using the mistakes is that we return and we get right. But what I'm saying is, just don't be afraid of making a mistake.
That is so good.
And don't be afraid that if you've made a mistake, it's over.
Yeah.
Like let him show you a different way of weaving that together. So that's one thing. Don't be afraid of that. And so one reason is you can't out mistake him. The other is he's your dad. Wow. I mean, he's not up there going, damn, Kevin? All right, I'm done, man. I don't know what to tell you, Kevin.
Yeah, you're sacked.
I warned you 3 times. That's it.
Yeah.
Forget it. No, don't you come apologizing. It's too late. That's just not who he is.
Yeah,
so that's the other piece of not being afraid.
He's your father, yeah.
And the third is I think he actually delights when we step out, even when we don't know for sure. Wow. So my analogy is that, God has never given me hypothetical guidance. Like, okay, Lord, if I do this, what are you, how will you do this? It's kind of like, take a step, man.
Yes.
Put the car in gear, take off the brake, start moving.
That's such a good word.
I'll show you where to go.
Ooh, he's never given me hypothetical guidance. Wow.
So
I get it.
It's real guidance for a real thing. And that's all you can, so if we end up in South Asia, what should we do? Go to South Asia. I'll show you. It's like,
wow.
So show up, do something, and then see what happens. That's really what my life's been about, is like show up, do something, and see what happens. And it rarely happens the way I think it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So we thought we were going to this country to reach one particular people group. We did see things happen in that group, but where things really broke out were 2 other people groups that we barely had heard about before we got there. Wow. And weren't on our radar. So you just never know.
They were on God's radar.
They were on God's radar.
Wow.
So that's what I would say.
Thanks, Kevin. That's that's awesome advice.
Yeah.
Awesome
and of course get a degree at William Carey International University.
Exactly. Come on.
Just kidding.
So Kevin, I've got 3 more questions.
Yeah.
Now these are really important ones.
Yeah.
What's your favorite movie?
My favorite movie is probably Forrest Gump.
Oh, come on. Well, we just did a premiere the other night. We interviewed the guy, Michael T. Williamson, that played Bubba Gump.
Yeah.
He's in Run the Race. Our friends have just produced
cool.
it.
All right.
It releases this Friday.
That's awesome.
In cinemas, and he played the football coach of his
really
high school football kids.
Oh, cool.
And he did a great job.
I'm sure he did.
We interviewed him. He's amazing.
Yeah.
It's on one of these podcasts.
Yeah.
It's actually been released already.
Okay. But I think that's probably my favorite movie.
It's a great film.
So much stuff in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And ironically, I've got a story about another thing about Forrest Gump. There's an old guy. He's in a motorized wheelchair, and he comes past my house nearly every day with his dog attached to a lead. And I've started talking. His name's Charlie, and he worked in the film industry here. And he was the grip on Forrest Gump.
Oh wow! Yeah,
Isn't that
amazing
funny?
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Now, what's your favorite sound?
My favorite sound.
Bit of a curly one, that one.
That's a great one. There's a lot of them.
Come on, I like that. Well, give me your top 3.
Well, I mean, there's always, there's birds singing in the spring. That's always amazing.
Oh my gosh, isn't
There's the sound of waves crashing on the seashore. And there's the sound there's something about the sound of a guitar and a harmonica together that I really like.
Come on.
Yep.
Gosh, you make me feel like going home and doing that right now.
Yeah.
Playing my guitar and getting
Yeah, me too,
harmonic
right?
out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll have to play together sometime.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Now, last question.
Yep.
When all is said and done and life on earth is over for Kevin Higgins,
Yes.
and you are...
Which is sooner now than when I was 22.
Come on. When you go to meet the Lord,
Yeah.
what's the first words you'd like to hear Jesus say to you?
I mean, I think it's just, I think what I'd really love is I'd just like to look in his eyes and him go, Kevin.
Whoa! Come on.
That's what I want to hear.
Come on.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful. What a moment, hey?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. So
Wow.
it's a wonderful hope we have, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't it?
Knows our name. He knows a name we have that we don't even know.
Yes, the new name.
The new name.
Wow.
And so maybe that's what I want to hear.
Yes!
Like, Kevin's fine, but what's my new name? Yeah.
Wow. Maybe he'll say it and you'll recognize it straight
Yeah,
away.
probably, because it will describe who we are
Yeah.
in a core that we don't even know yet. The Nathan that he designed,
Whoa.
we haven't seen yet fully. You're coming out, and I'm coming out, but it's
Come on, yeah, exactly.
But it's not the full Nathan
No.
that he designed from all eternity to be on this planet.
Come on.
But it's going to be there,
Come on.
and then your wife's going to go,
Finally.
"Where was that? Where was that all these years?"
That's so true.
Lord, a little more of that would have been great.
Yeah, couldn't you have done that a bit earlier,
Yeah.
Lord?
Just giving you a hard time.
It's true. Oh my gosh. Kevin, wow. Well, this has been a fantastic podcast. I mean, this has
It's been fun. Thanks.
Missions
Everybody
101.
likes to talk about themselves, so thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But your story is so incredible. And
Yeah.
I just love the faithfulness of the journey and what happened. And you didn't give up. And then you're still involved and it's still happening.
going,
And
yeah.
God's brought you onto this here. And then this is training for the future.
Yeah.
And now we're going to glean the wisdom from your journey. And it's just wonderful.
Good to be with
wonderful.
you. Thank you.
I'm glad I know you.
And all of you, wherever you are.
Yeah, and hang on. What was it?
You got
what
it?
is it?
Come on.
What does it mean? And what do I do?
Yeah.
That's the
What's it
t-shirt.
say?
What's it say? What does it mean?
And what do I
What do I do? I love that. I love that.
Thanks.
So Kevin, would you just pray us out?
Sure.
Would you
Yeah,
just
yeah.
release a blessing over all our listeners?
Yeah, Lord, thanks for this time with Nathan and with
Yes, God.
so many members of your body that we can't see here now, but are hearing this. I pray for blessing on each one. Those that are on a journey, they're trying to figure out the next step. Just shine your flashlight on the next step and help them to trust you with the rest of it. Those who feel like they've slid off and make a mistake, show them how you're weaving that into your great plan.
Yes, God.
Those that are still trying to discern your long picture, give them a deep conviction about
Yes.
what you've called them to, so that
Come on.
when the hard times come, they know that they know that they know
Yes.
what you've called them to. And just release blessing, healing, restoration into the lives of all who are listening and the lives of all that they know and love. And pour your favor and blessing, the fullness of the blessing of Abraham upon all nations, all the families of the earth,
Yes, God.
so that we can see that great day when all of us will be gathered around the throne of the Lamb and singing your praises.
Come on.
In Jesus' name. Amen.
Oh, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for
All
coming
right.
in.
Yeah, thanks.
Guys, thank you for listening. Hope you've enjoyed this episode. Leave some comments below. Download the Iris Global app so you can listen to these podcasts more easily. And we love you guys, and we will see you really, really soon. Ciao. This podcast is presented by Iris Global. For more information or to support the work of Iris Global, please visit us online at irisglobal.org.